Welcome everybody to Tech Talk Tuesday. So that's how you know what day of the week it is. I'm Dan Conger, Baseline's training manager, and with me we've got Ed Hodnett, our regional sales manager. And Ed, what's your territory? Where do you cover?
I cover the broad midsection of the U.S., flyover country. So basically, the tip of Texas to Canada and Tennessee and through parts of Arizona.
Fantastic, beautiful. So today we're going to be talking about mobile access. Maybe you know everything about mobile access. Maybe there's some things you don't know. And I always hope, what I hope in my training classes when I put them on, that you take away one thing. If you get one thing out of this one, I'm really happy with that one. And maybe your thing that you get out of it is you're entertained. Neither Ed or I are going to sing today, so I don't know how that would be bad. We'd see the numbers drop off immediately. So, but yesterday, Ed, before we jump into our content, yesterday you and I were talking about this site with a substation and some 3200s. And let me show you, I have an example of what we were talking about. And there we go. So what we were talking about yesterday was a site. This is not the exact same site that we're talking about, but we were talking about a site with a base station 3200. And then we had two substations, and they were connected with their communication method, whether it be cell or, lots of different methods for connecting substations. But let's just kind of walk through some of the things that a substation can do. We're almost backing up the bus on this one. So substation, Ed, once I'm connected to a substation, what do you do at a substation versus what can you do at a substation versus a 3200? I mean, if I walk up to a substation, what can I do?
Well, it's really a wired relay point, or a non-wired relay point. So connected wirelessly, it's an extension of that main controller, but you still need the controller, direction to be able to run anything.
Right. So I think it's kind of like old school set it and forget it. Really, once it's connected, you're not going to do anything at the substation because everything is run by the base station 3200. Okay, so got that. So here's where I think the potential annoyance that we were talking about is on this site. If the maintenance people want to do a wet check out by controller B, if they can't run zones at the substation, God darn, that's annoying to walk back to the base station 3200, go through 4 gates and walk across the site. That's like a soft underhanded pitch to you, Ed.
No, it's a perfect use for the mobile app. I mean, having the power of that 3200 in your hand, so you can operate and manage irrigation however you want to while you're on the fly.
Absolutely.
And one person can perform a wet check and not need 2 people in radios.
Yeah, there we go. Absolutely right. So we're gonna with your mobile device in hand, whatever that mobile device is, and we'll talk about those in a second. We can do it from anywhere. So we don't have to traipse across the site. 90%, 95. I don't know how many people don't have a smartphone in their pocket. Most people do, and with a device that we can connect to the internet one way or another, we can access that controller. A couple of different ways we can do that. Awesome. So that's kind of one use case for it, and then we'll kind of dive into some other use cases. So let's talk about what mobile access is and what it isn't. So mobile access allows you to use your mobile device to connect to your controller. So it allows you to connect into it. You got to have a communication method in your controller. That's a given, right? So Ethernet, cell, Wi-Fi, some other method that's getting us outside of that, because that's how my device is going to connect into that one. And you'd mentioned we could do a wet check. So we could do some simple functionality. We could run a program. We could check status of different things. It is not intended as a full base manager replacement though, right? Now, I don't know if you've heard this. I think it was maybe last year, year before last, people were calling support and saying, I'm using base manager on my phone and this is going wrong. They're actually using full base manager on their phone.
Yeah, very difficult.
Right. It's not intended to do that. It was
Right.
never intended to run that on there. It was intended to use mobile access with your phone. And it's it's in some ways it's stripped down, in other ways it's simplified. It kind of depends on, how you want to look at it. I'm going to call it simplified. If you want to do a wet check, right? We want to start a program, want to check a sensor. Those are things that we're intending to do from your mobile device. So the
Right. But trying
device
to
is
run Base Manager from your mobile device just doesn't have the processing speed, and it's a tiny format to try
right.
and mess with. So that's what the mobile access was designed for.
Yeah, I mean, the older my eyes get, the harder it is to see, a map or something on a tiny screen. So that, I've got an iPhone, but an Android, whatever phone you've got works that gets there. I found some old tech around my house, and here's my wife's Amazon Fire. It's a reader, right? But it can get to the web. That works. Um, One of the things that I kind of like is, let's see if I can fire this one up. This turns out this is actually pretty old. And I've got an iPad right here. So this iPad, right? So what's kind of nice about this one, about an iPad, right? Look how big that is. That is old. Um, what's nice about a tablet is it's large enough that you can use a map. So you could use full base manager on this,
Mhm.
or you could run it in mobile access. So when we go, there's a few things that we only get in mobile access that we don't get in full base manager. So we'll see what those look like. What's interesting though is I was trying to fire this up and get into maps on this one. This is actually, I needed to update the OS on this one because this has been sitting in the closet, and I think it's so old that it won't run the new OS. So
Oops.
obsolete technology.
Come on, buy mom a new iPad.
Right. Well, it's amazing how now all of us are just using our phone. We don't even
Yeah.
bother doing that. So I kind of like a tablet. When I was in the field, I used an iPad mini, which is about the size of this. It was really super convenient. I could do a lot with that. Although phone screens just keep growing and growing. So an iPhone mini and a phone screen, that kind of depends on what works for you. I want to share my phone screen, and let me bring that over, and let's go bring in my phone screen. Okay, so this is always an interesting game because I'm sharing my phone screen live, and we can see what's on my phone. So first, let's start off. Okay, so I want to jump into mobile access. So we're going to get to mobile access. I'm going to come in through App Manager. So I'm going to start with using a browser. I'm using Safari because that seems to work best for me. I also have a couple other browsers installed on here. And I'm just going to go to the same place that we go for mobile access, and that's baselineapps.net. There it is. Okay. Now, baselineapps.net, this is still within the browser. I've got my username and password, and you can add those in. That's one way of doing it, right? So this gets me into full app manager. But actually, I want to do it a little different way. So let me sign out. Ooh, look at that. See, that's not liking that. That's okay. So I'm going to show you another way of doing this. And what I have done is this is going to look a lot like an app, looks like something you download from the iOS or the Google Play Store. This is not, right? This is still using Safari. So if anybody that's met me knows that I'm a pretty organized, am I anal? I don't know, but
A
I'm a
pretty neat
very
desktop, Dan. I'll tell you that.
that's right. That's true. Well, even I'll take you one more, Ed. This is my work phone, and then this is my personal crap, right? I actually have two screens. I think I got three screens. Yeah. So I got personal and work stuff all on two different screens. Very, and then of course I've got a folder for travel, and then I've got a folder for baseline stuff. Immediately, this looks like an application. It's not. All I've done is create a Safari shortcut and
Yeah,
placed it on my home screen. Now, have you done that, Ed?
I do. I have the same thing on mine.
Yeah, it's super convenient, right? It's just one place to go. So I'm going to go into baselineapps.net. Now, what's interesting is it does go full screen, but it's still on Safari. I've saved my username and password, and I think there's an intersection between laziness and efficiency that I'm going to call brilliance. I let the browser manage all my passwords, right? Because I don't know about you, but I got a lot of passwords.
Just wait a few years, it doesn't get better.
And you're not, I don't even know if you're that much older than me. If you are, we may be the same age.
Either way, it's not the years, it's the miles.
Okay. So at baselineapps.net, I still have to go to mobile access. Okay. So I've got all the same things that I need, and I can go to mobile access and open mobile access, and that gets me in there. Now, that's one way to do it. I'm going to show you what I think is an even better way. So let's log out, get out of this. Okay. And I have a different shortcut. So Ed, at the very beginning, you dropped this shortcut in there, and I'm going to go to, I have a shortcut set up for mobile access, and this one is baselineapps.net/m. And that's going to take me right into mobile access. Looks identical, doesn't it? Same username, same password, sign in. I don't have to have that. It's one step short, right? It jumps me right into my controllers and all the other things. So if you look back in the chat, the very first thing that Ed dropped in there was the link to baselineapps.net/m. That's where I am.
And I just sent that out to everybody, so you can just click on the latest link.
There you go. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Yeah. And that's where I am. Now this is going to be appropriate for your login. Now, what you notice though is we don't have a map, right? This is a slimmed down version. So I've got my 3 controllers that I work with. I've got my 2 demo controllers and my testing controller, but let's jump into my demo controller, which is right here in my office. Don't have maps. That's one of the big differences. And then here's the functionality that we have. We can run a zone. We can stop a program, test devices. Let's go in and run a zone. And I'm going to scroll through my zones here. And here I've got some zones named. I've got the turf rotary zones, the drip shrub zones, the big rotor zones. But if we come down here, zone 71, what do you think that runs, Ed? Any guess?
No idea.
No freaking clue. We have no idea. That is a risky manual run. But I will tell you one right here is 33. I will turn that on any day of the week. Half a gallon GPM bubblers, and they're the trees west of field 3. I know exactly where that is. That is safe to run. And instead of 10 minutes, let's change it to 8 minutes and start it. That zone's going to run. I can advance to the next zones, and this is a great way to do a wet check, right? So notice that 8 minutes is sticking. If I got a wet check, I can walk around and do this. Sweet. Manually run a zone. Super. It's a very common way. But you noticed that these names of the zones, I am an enormous proponent of naming your devices. So these are named, and those are okay names. These names are absolutely worthless. Name your devices, name your zones. So, Ed, have you ever tried to name a zone or a device from the controller?
You can't do it.
It's a trick question, right? You can't do it. Yeah, you can only do it through a Base Manager desktop, right? Because you need a keyboard. You need alphanumeric keys. We don't have that in the controller. You do it here, but I did this on a desktop. It carried over to mobile access, carries over to Base Manager, and it also gets pushed out to the controller. Name your devices. It'll really save yourself a lot of work, a lot of guessing, if you will. So we could start or stop a program. So if you look at program 40, for example, well, this one is disabled, and I might use this only twice a year. This might be the only place I fire it up is in mobile access. Or if you're going to if you have a special blowout program that you're going to blow out your irrigation lines, instead of running it for 2 minutes, you want to run it for 7 minutes, or variable blowouts. Now, you said you didn't get much snow. Do you do much? Do your contractors do blowout in your part of the country?
Well, I cover a big area.
Oh, that's right, you do. Go really far north.
You know, if you get from upper Oklahoma north, everybody blows out. Okay. South of that, it's hit and miss, and in southern parts of Texas, nobody blows out.
Okay, so what since I live in the West and we don't blow out here, my guess is that there might be some zones that you need to run longer than others to get them to blow out. So you could create a program, it's a blowout program, and you could have some zones run for 5 and some zones run for 12. You only run it once a year to blow it out, and this is the only place you start it.
Right.
That's an option.
There's
So we can
also, sports field managers. I've run across those where they like to be able to do on a practice field. Let's say I just want to run it for 5 minutes. I just want the heads to run 5 minutes. However, they might want to do that. They can just stack those programs up and have them inactive. And then when they want to, just run them, they can do it quickly from the mobile app.
Excellent. Excellent. So we could also find status on all of our different things. So I could see my flow status and see if anything's actually running right now, or I could test a device and get some information about it. So I could test my individual zones, but I could also test a moisture sensor and see what's my current moisture content on a sensor, right? We could see that the current moisture content right now is 21.3%. That might give you some information on how dry it is. I know Tracy's talked about this idea in Colorado of leaving their controller on even though there's snow on the ground, and he can test moisture content and he can test temperature, soil temperature, and see when the spring is starting to come, right? Is it
right?
Even though they're not irrigating, but is the ground warming up?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
Sure. So then I would say a lot of these are pretty self-explanatory, and I think you'll get a feel for it. You'll just kind of see what's here and what's not. But the geolocate is one that is definitely worth spending a little bit of time on. So let's go to geolocate a device. And geolocate allows me to create my map in a quicker fashion. So on desktop version, which we'll jump to in a minute, the map is a wonderful asset to use to have that asset map. And we can, everything that has a unique baseline serial number can put on that map, as well as things that don't have unique baseline serial numbers, like a pump station or a backflow preventer or a quick coupler valve. We could do that with custom markers down there towards the bottom. So I'm going to geolocate a couple devices on my map, and then we'll take a look at them. So let's find zones, and we're going to go easy and go zone 1. In zone 1, right now, based off of my location, which is cell tower triangulation, 16 feet, seems decent. And I'm going to mark this. And when I mark it, I want you to watch the upper right-hand corner and watch what happens. You see that? It's going to be small, the latitude and longitude coordinates of where I'm standing right now. So my office here in San Diego, it is placed zone 1 where I am.
And Dan, your map's not coming through on the...
No, it's not. No maps yet. No maps. We're going to have to switch to desktop to see maps. So this is intended to be used while I'm out in the field. So what I might do then is I'm standing at zone 1 and I mark zone 1. Then I'm going to advance to let's advance to zone 3. You see, now I'm zone 3. And I'm going to mark zone 3 at valve box 3 and mark it. Okay, there's the coordinates again. So how this might be used is Ed and I are going to map out a site really quick. We're going to take 200 zones. We're going to do it maybe an hour. We're going to place them on the map. Ed's going to drive the cart. I'm going to sit in the passenger side. Hold up, valve 17, mark. Places that on the map real time. Okay. Now Chris Wright could be back in the office and he could look at zone 17 like, I'm going to adjust that, and you can grab zone 17 and tweak it and move it around. Okay, so let's go to the desktop version and see what zone 17, or excuse me, zones 1 and 3 look like. So for that, let's bring in my browser and share my screen again. Okay, so I'm going to log into Base Manager and Ed, how many times can user BL25 be logged in?
I don't have an answer for that. I didn't think there was a limit. Just one?
Well, user BL25, username. So user Ed Hodnett, user Dan Conger, user BL25 can only be logged in one device at one time. So what I just did is I kicked BL25 off of mobile. I just logged them out because I logged in with the exact same username. Now, if Ed and I want to both be access to the same controller, we just need separate logins. That's all. That's really easy to set up. Okay, so we're not going to go to mobile access. I'm going to go to full base manager. And we're going to be looking for the map. So let's make sure we're on the right map. So let's check. Okay, good. We're in the right control. Okay, so this is what I was working on. This controller right here. And this is actually in Las Vegas, and that was zones 1 and 3. And zones 1 and 3 are not on this map. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out on Las Vegas and see what happens. Well, whoever's in Las Vegas, yeah, we aren't on this site. This is a great example site. Okay, we got the big desert of Las Vegas, Lake Mead, where they get all their water. We try and get some of their water too. Check it out. There's San Diego. There's zones 1.
You put them in your house.
That's where I am, right? So I'm in North San Diego County, and if I need to, what I can do is I can click on those. Let's go. Now I went to edit. Let's drag those and make those. If I looked at them like, that's not quite right. They're actually over here in the middle of the Salton Sea. So I can click and drag them. That's where somebody could be back in the office moving these markers around and moving them real time, right? So we can do this in real time. One person could be marking and another person could be in the office dragging and dropping. Having that full fleshed out map though, man, that's got to be it's an enormous time saver. So let's come back to, I messed up. Let's change. Let's bring back my phone. And there's a few more things that are worth looking at that we can do. So see, I logged out. So we're going to have to log back in. And okay, so if we're back at my 3200, so we saw where those markers were. I could set a rain delay here, right? So we could set a rain delay of X number of days. I'm not going to do it. What I always forget is that I have a rain delay set, and I'm like, why is nothing running? It's because you just set it. And then we could see all my messages right here. So I could look through all of my messages in here. Well, that's a low priority. I don't need this one. And that one, oh, that was a backup. I can delete that, right? So you can deal with your messages out in the field as well. Or this is a good one. You can just stop all operations, right? If anything's running, just shut it down and stop it. So several things that we can do from this one. Let's take a quick look at what it looks like if we forced it to go into full desktop mode. I don't think we're going to like this. So I'd like that Gregory notes that he worked on Lorenzi Park, where I just kind of picked that one as a good example. Every so often someone catches me doing something kind of sneaky, and it's the same one that I use in my training class. I use that one. So here's full. I'm going to attempt to go full desktop version on my phone, and this right here, let's even turn it sideways. Whoa. Okay, that's kind of weird. This is the problem, right? Is how do you make this work? I don't know. This is way too small for me to deal with. Now I do. Where's Las Vegas? Now I'm completely lost. Oh, there's wow. No, thanks. That's not what it was designed for. So do not recommend that using the full desktop version. If you really want best of both worlds, a tablet will get you there.
And then, like everything else in Base Manager, all of the icons for the different valves use the same color coding scheme and are consistent throughout, correct?
Absolutely right. So if you look in the door of the controller, you'll see the color codes on there. Or if you're in Base Manager, if you click Menu and Color Status, I believe is the correct title, those colors are consistent in the controller, in Base Manager, in Pipe View. And we don't get a map on mobile access, but the colors are still the same for your zones, right? So yellow or green or the magenta paused, all those colors. Yeah, consistent. That was one thing that our engineers have been is if nothing but consistent, right? They use that. That's through the entire ecosystem. They're all the same colors. Excellent point, Ed. Yeah. So I'd be curious to hear from you in the chat. If you would drop in your chat in the chat how you use or what you use mobile access for. Do you use it for a wet check? Do you use it for testing devices? How do you use it? What's the most common use for mobile access out in the field? Love to hear what you have to say on that one.
Or among your clients, and anything
Oh,
that you
yeah,
think could be improved.
yeah. Love to hear how you use it. Let's see. Looks like I show that someone raised their hand or were they waving? I don't know what that was. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay. So, oh, that was from Craig. Oh, thanks. Thanks for catching that one. Well, because I tend to think the most common use for this is wet check, but I'm not a contractor anymore. It's been a few years since I've been a contractor, but right. So I think that if you're using it for a wet check or for a simple remote, right, the big thing is we don't have to have a dedicated remote, right? So having that ability to use your phone as that remote control, that kind of stops that ability, that need for having a dedicated remote. When I was a contractor, I know that was an issue to, set up a remote and have the antenna, and you're only talking to that one. Now all I need to do is now connect to the internet, and then I have that one.
And then you've got your entire book of business, there at your fingertips. So the technology is managing it, can
Yep.
let you know if there's an issue. And again, where time is money, leveraging that technology to be more efficient with your time is where
Yeah.
it's at.
So yeah, so Russell's saying checking zone status. Okay, that's cool. So that might be an interesting use case. It's like zone 27 should be running right now. Why isn't it running? Oh, it's paused. Okay, so there's a pause condition going on, or it's cycle soaking. It's running. It's just doing a cycle soak. That's a different color code. I like that one. And Greg makes a good comment that there's a cost saving eliminating those remotes. Yeah, and the reliability of it, right? Knowing that, I change my phone every 2-3 years, something like that. So and my phone is usually in pretty good shape. That said, I know that when I was using an iPad Mini in the field, you had to be careful of that, right? You don't get it wet. I did have a more bulletproof case for my Mini, my iPad when I was out in the field. So good call. I like that. I think that gets us just about to our end. So if we got any more questions, but I think we're going to wrap it up for today.
Good feedback, Dan. Again, what would I say about the mobile app? It just leveraging technology to manage your entire business from your phone.
Nice.
We don't need third-party devices, and we can keep our fingers on the pulse of so many more controllers and sites, again, using the technology to its fullest.
Excellent. Nice. Well, summarized like an RSM. Beautiful. Well, fantastic. I want to thank you all Ed, thank you for joining me. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Dan.
And for everybody who was here today, appreciate you joining. Glad to see you. Look for us again on our next Tech Talk. Definitely keep up on the registration and the schedules, and we'll make sure to send you reminders on what our next topic is. So we thank you all for joining, and have a great week, and we'll see you around soon. Take care, all.
Thanks, everybody.